Welcome to the Provider's Report, where we delve into the world of value-based healthcare. Our mission is to empower healthcare providers with the knowledge and tools they need to deliver exceptional patient care. Each episode, we explore best practices, innovative strategies, and real-world examples of how to achieve the highest standards in patient communication and outcomes. Join us as we transform the future of healthcare, one conversation at a time.
Today's episode is sponsored by The Smart Chiropractor and their new book, The Payday Practice. So I'm sure you guys have heard of Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Tim Ferriss. How do you think they would build a healthcare practice? The answer is in this book called The Payday Practice, a new book by Dr. Jeff Langmaid and Dr. Jason Deitch. This new book will show you exactly how to cover your monthly expenses in just one day every single month, guaranteed. Whether you want to just cover your monthly expenses for your physical practice or actually create the digital healthcare practice of the future, this book is your blueprint for building it, launching it, and growing it. Get your free copy today at www.thepaydaypractice.com. Their step-by-step guide to financial freedom will show you exactly how to 1. Set your dream, visions, and goals using their financial freedom formula. 2. Build a health tribe of people who are engaged and ready to go all in with your business. 3. Create an irresistible membership offer for your clients and patients. And 4. Launch and sell out your membership in the next 30 days. The Payday Practice will show you the exact step-by-step process that you can use to generate monthly recurring revenue in your practice. Get your free copy today, once again, at www.thepaydaypractice.com. That's www.thepaydaypractice.com. I would also recommend checking out The Smart Chiropractor on Facebook and also Instagram at The Smart Chiro for more amazing knowledge to take your practice to the next level. Hey everybody at Better Doctor Project. We are back again with another episode for our Enneagram series. And tonight we're going to be talking with a Type 8, which is also known as the Challenger. And I'm really excited because I know her personally. She's a fellow chiropractor. And I'm really anxious to chat with her because I actually did not expect her to be a Type 8. And Type 8s are some of my favorite people. So we're going to dive in. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be on your podcast.
Thanks. So before we dive into what an Enneagram Type 8 is, I would just like to know a little bit more about your background, what you're doing professionally. Just tell us everything.
So my name is Emily Bowman. I'm a chiropractor in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. I was an exercise science major and went to the University of Minnesota Duluth for undergrad, and then went down to Palmer immediately after completing my undergrad degree. I graduated in the summer of 2018 and purchased my practice right after graduation. So I ended up not working for anybody. My office has actually been a chiropractic office since the 1950s. The last doctor was there for 38 years, and then his wife was also a chiropractor. So I went from 2 doctors being in my practice to just me. And we, within 3 months, over doubled our new patient visits per month. So I was really asking for a lot, I guess, at that point in time. I didn't have any idea how it was going to go. I braced for the worst and absolutely got the best. I now have an associate in my practice who's been with me for 6 months now, I think.
Nice.
So it's going really well.
Yeah, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So I obviously know how you stumbled upon the Enneagram, but I would love it for you to tell our listeners because it's kind of funny. How did you find out about the test?
So Rebecca had shared on her Facebook page about Enneagrams and just was like, hey, I'm curious what you are, whatever. And I had taken personality tests way back in middle school and high school through school. And I was like, I'll do this for fun. I hadn't taken that one. I don't even remember what my results were from back then. So I took it, and I actually didn't think that it lined up very well with me. And I had asked my husband, he's like, oh yeah, you're a Type 8 for sure. So it was pretty interesting. But I feel like if I would have taken it when I was back in high school, I would have probably had a different personality type come back at that point.
Yeah, or even just a different perception. I mean, I'm kind of similar. I mean, I don't know what other type I would be other than a Type 1, but when I think back to the way I viewed myself when I was younger versus how I view myself now, I don't think I could have picked myself as a type 1. I mean, even though I obviously was, I just feel like your perceptions also play a role with the Enneagram, which I think is the coolest part, because when you ask other people, what type do you think I am? It's always interesting to hear their perceptions of you.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yeah. And your husband obviously knew.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm assuming you probably did some diving after that and started, yeah, you probably read a few things about it to make sure it was the correct type.
Yes, I did. And then once I did some more digging, it definitely made sense. I'm a type 8, and then my next highest is a type 1, and they were pretty close. And then everything after that was like a very far reach for me in the test results. So with the type 1 combined in there, it definitely fit me a lot better than just a straight up type 8.
Yeah. And obviously you're a little bit more new to it, but did you have a chance to check out wings yet? So for type 8, it would either be a 7 wing or a 9 wing.
I looked into it. I didn't dig too deeply into that. So I briefly read about a 9 because I thought I remembered that's what, when I made my husband take it, that's what he was, but he's a 5.
So the 9 is the peacemaker. The 7 is the oh, I'm totally blanking right now. It is the, let me look up to be, it's what my husband is. And I'm totally, oh, it's the enthusiast. That's right.
Okay.
So definitely look into that if you're not sure. The wings are interesting, and I think not everyone is a wing, but it's interesting to see if you have some other components to another type. So that should be next on your list.
I will definitely look into that. I thought with it, because I knew about wings, but I thought like the top 2 were the 2 that like the one would have been a wing for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, no. So the wings are actually, if you look at the Enneagram circle and diagram, they're the ones that are just right next door to your main number.
Okay.
But when you take tests, it gives you like your highest rankings for what your main is, which is so
Okay.
funny because there's so many mistypes. Like 1 and 3 get mixed up a lot, and there's so many. So I think that plays a role, and that's why Enneagram Ashton, who was on our intro episode, she always recommends take those tests with a grain of salt, just like you did, right? It said type 8, type 1, and then do some research. Read a little bit, and the right one will just jump right out at you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
This one's hard because I feel like the harmony part of like a type 9 fits with me, but avoiding conflicts, like I don't go out of my way to start them, but I will definitely jump in and like put my foot down if the the thing is right. Like insurance companies don't like me when they have issues. Like
I love it.
I let my front desk lady, I'm like, you can call twice, because I just get like riled up. I'm like, the third time we have to reach out, I'm calling. And then she just laughs because right away something comes through. It is
one of my favorite parts about type 8s. So for all of our listeners, I'm just going to read a brief snippet about type 8, if you're not familiar. So again, the type 8 is also known as the challenger. So they're a relatively powerful, dominating type. They tend to be pretty self-confident, decisive, willful, and occasionally confrontational. Also strong and assertive, which are all really good qualities, I think, in a business owner. So props to you. Protective, resourceful, straight talking. It's just a really, I think, self-mastering type. The basic fear of a type 8 is being harmed or controlled by others. The basic desire is to protect themselves and to basically be in control of your own life and destiny. And like I said already, the wings are a type 7 or a type 9. And the number one motivation is to be self-reliant, prove your strength, and resist weakness, which I think is just a really, really cool type. One of my favorite things too, I like to look at celebrities who are that, whichever type. Have you had a chance to peek at that?
I briefly looked at it and I don't remember any of them.
So my favorite, it's a great one. So my favorite for type 8 is, it's actually going to be Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. How fun is that? And some other ones are Queen Latifah, Aretha Franklin, Serena Williams, Dr. Phil of all people.
That makes sense.
Alec Baldwin. What else is on here? Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt. I mean, you're looking at a pretty solid group of people. And then they have a couple villains on here, which I found interesting. Saddam Hussein. Donald Trump is actually a type 8. I guess I just categorized him as a villain. Sorry, this is not meant to be political.
Okay.
That was not meant to be political. Yeah. But it was interesting how there's like that's what intrigues me about type 8, because it can go so many different ways, but you still have that really powerful mindset. I don't know. What do you think is your biggest strength in general as a type 8?
So I've known that I wanted to do chiropractic since I was in middle school.
No.
So I actually graduated early from high school, graduated undergrad in 3.5 years. Because of how my program was, it was either graduate in 4.5 or 3.5. So
Wow.
I took the 3.5 year route. So I got all of that done, and my husband laughs. So when we met, I had just started undergrad, and like I said, I told you earlier, he told me that had we not met through like mutual friends that introduced us, we were like set up on a blind meeting, not even a blind date. They just railroaded both of us into going over to their house, and we met. He said if we wouldn't have met that way, he would have never walked up to me had he seen me like out in a bar or out at a restaurant or anything.
Wow.
Like he would have not approached me because I was intimidating, which makes sense because all through undergrad, like nobody like tried to hit on me, do anything, which if you like, you know me. So I'm a very petite person and I'm not very intimidating looking, like in my mindset anyways, but apparently he's like, oh yeah, I would have never even walked. But with being a type 8 and being a business owner, I knew I could have worked for the 2 doctors that owned my practice before me. It's actually the practice I was a patient in for 20 some odd years that I was able to purchase after graduating. So I knew I could have worked for them, but I knew ultimately I did want to own my own business. So I was partway through my internship with them, and I had said, like, do you want to hire me? Do you not want to hire me? I need to start looking for a job. If you don't want to hire me but still want me around, could I rent space from you? And Dr. Kim goes, let me talk to her husband, Dr. Buddy, and we'll get back to you. So the next day, our conversation went, we want to retire. Can you purchase our practice? This, like, I hadn't even taken boards yet. I hadn't graduated yet. And my response was, if I pass my boards and can find financing, I will 100% purchase your practice.
Wow.
So in the meantime, studied for boards. We didn't find out our results until July. So I had been graduated since the middle of June. And I had I think it ended up being 38-page business plan that I walked into 2 banks with, like the morning that I got my board scores and found out I passed, and was like, I want to purchase their practice. Please keep this quiet. Let me know what you guys think. And one of them kind of laughed in my face as a new graduate, was like, well, we could give you all this money and you could tank it, which floored me because that was the bank that they had used. So I thought, if anything, that was going to be my easiest option.
Wow.
The other bank went, oh yeah, we have no problem with this. Like, let's get the ball moving. I need all this paperwork, blah, 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 blah. So I ended up purchasing a practice right after graduation, which I think would intimidate a lot of people. But to me, that was my end goal. My goal was to own my own practice. So it was, I guess, get thrown to the wolves right after graduating and see what happens.
It makes sense. I mean, we just read that the primary motivator, the primary desire for a type 8 is to have control over your own destiny. And that's exactly what you did. Have you noticed any strengths as a healthcare provider specifically, like something that comes in when you're working with patients?
I wouldn't say necessarily with patients. My patients, I don't come across intimidating to them because they definitely open up to me and everything. And that's, you'll see in my like comments section, like, advice for new doctors is, you can be as book smart as you want to be, but if you're not approachable to your patients and relatable to your patients, you're really going to struggle with patient care. So even though I have that, like, whatever, domineering, I guess, whatever in my Enneagram type, that's not how I try to come across to my patients, but it really helps, again, with dealing with insurance companies and then even dealing with other healthcare providers, because unfortunately, especially in my area, chiropractors have a bad rap for kind of being quacks or not working well with any healthcare providers. And I strive to really change that. So I will not give up until I can actually talk to a provider. So if I have to make a referral for somebody and I'm leaving messages with nurses and they're not like getting back to me, or it's taking forever to get my patient in for an orthopedic consult or neurology or whatever it may be, I don't stop until my patient is in. In one instance, I had to make 9 referrals. This included to Mayo in Eau Claire, Freighter, and a couple other local neurology and like spine specialist places, until one of them would finally actually look at her. They would just look at her note and were like, no, she needs therapy. She needs this. She needs that. And it ended up being she needed surgery. And
oh my goodness.
they had written her off. And like I said, even Mayo. So if anybody's a provider at Mayo listening to this, just keep in mind, people are more than what their notes show.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great story. I mean, and even though that's indirectly helping patients are going to really appreciate that in you, because they're going to feel like you always have their back. And I think that's really valuable as a healthcare provider.
Yep. And early on, like I said, I've been in practice now with my Bowman chiropractic business for 3.5 years. And the providers initially didn't know who I was. And now when I call, even like the triage nurse that are local, like it's a spine and neuro clinic, she knows if something's coming through from me, it's not because it's like, oh, like I'm sick of this person, like they need to move on. It's like, no, this person actually has an issue, like we need to get them in, because I've interacted with them enough. And a lot of providers, now that I've been around and they're kind of knowing what I do, I can have really professional conversations with them. And it's really nice to be able to call them and say, hey, can you look at this for me? Or I have a patient that they can't get in. Can you please review their notes quicker to see if they can get in?
And that, that self-confidence has helped you deal with something difficult to make sure that, patient or doctor collaboration is actually happening.
Yes. And that's the nice thing, is I'm hoping that I'm changing the view of chiropractic up in our area, because unfortunately we have a lot that will not work well with other providers, whatever that may be. And I really hope that that's something that I can change over my time practicing here.
Well, it sounds like you already are. So good job. That's really great. So I would anticipate that most type 8s would say that their biggest downfall or thing that they have to work on would be to be more approachable. But it sounds like you're a healthy 8, which means you're kind of gravitating toward the type 2 helper. Do you think that there's anything you feel with this type that you personally want to work on, or something that stands out to you as maybe a weakness of any kind?
I feel like sometimes I can be overly aggressive with things. So, but it's to a point. So I give people the benefit of the doubt. So that's why, like, when we have insurance issues, I have my front desk handle it for the first few times, even though it drives me nuts. I'm like, really, you can't just process this correctly so we can be done and over with this. I'll let her handle it, and then I'll like step in and I'm like, okay, why is this not getting done? What do we have issues with? Whatever. So for instance, with hiring my associate, we had to go through all of the insurance contracting stuff, which I personally didn't have to do, because one of the staff that was in my practice when I took over did all my contracts for me. So this was a new thing for me, and working full time and I was working over 50-hour weeks at that point, and just seeing a ridiculous amount of patients a day before I had her. I had issues getting in network with this contract, and I'm like, as soon as she signed her contract, reached out and said, I really want this to go smoothly. My contract took you guys 10 months to get together. Like, can we please not have this happen again?
Wow.
And they were like, oh yeah, not a problem. So within 2 weeks, they pretty much made it seem like she was ready to go. And then 4 months later, she still wasn't in network. So I had emailed everybody that I had gotten in like information from. I had called every number that I had on record, couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I
Oh
just
my
got
goodness.
mad and typed up a professional but very strongly worded letter that called out every single person by name that I had an email from at this insurance company
Yes.
and faxed it to all of the fax numbers that I had on record through emails, which, probably wasn't the nicest thing to do. However, it was very effective because within an hour, her contract was sitting in her email box, and by the next day, she was in network.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one having issues with this. And I'm sure every healthcare provider listening to this who's in private practice can attest that sometimes these insurance companies can be very difficult, but I genuinely want to know why contracts are so difficult.
Right? It's
Like,
not like they never deal with this. Like, I feel like they have to deal with
yes,
this on a daily, if not weekly basis. Like,
yes.
change the name and send it out, please.
Yes, like going through my name change was very difficult too. And we had a similar situation with one company. It only took us 4 months to get a network, but I wish I would have done what you did.
Well, channel your inner Emily, and
Right?
next time you have an issue, just
That is
go for it.
hilarious. That's
I mean,
amazing.
I felt awful doing it, but I
Right.
was so fed up because nobody was responding. And I'm like, well, if one of your bosses sees this, and somebody must have gotten scolded because I did get an apology phone call from one of the people.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
was like, I don't want to do that. But I'm like, I literally have 20 emails and a record of, 10 different phone calls and voicemails to you guys. And you just didn't take the time to even shoot me an email saying, we're working on it, or whatever the case may be. And the fact
Right.
that they had it done in an hour after a nasty fax went through, I mean, obviously it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's really not. And I love the confrontation because I think it's just a really effective way to get things done. And even when you are being aggressive, there's obviously a way to be professional, which it sounds like you have that on lock, which is great. So to any of our listeners who are maybe hearing you talk about your type and are either for sure that they're a type 8, or maybe they're a little bit convinced but don't know yet, what would you recommend to them about being a healthcare provider, a business owner, a person? What are just some general pieces of advice that you have for other type 8s?
Definitely, if you're in healthcare, try to be approachable to your patients. That's my number one thing, because like I said, my husband wouldn't have walked up to me in a bar. So if you're not approachable, for like, if your patient walks in and takes one look at you and goes, they are not friendly, or whatever it
Yeah.
might be, you're going to lose patients
Is
that
there a
way.
way to learn that? I mean, how would you recommend? I mean, what are some tips?
Probably ask your friends. So
Ah,
ask your friends like what they did. Like I said, I wasn't sure I was an 8, and I asked my husband. He's like, "Oh no, you're for sure an 8." And then he like kind of went into why he like strongly felt that I fit this. I feel like your
yeah,
friends would be a good resource too, of like, okay, what do I need to work on in order to be more approachable to people, or whatever the case may be. I Even family, probably somebody will give you their 2 cents and help you get on the right direction.
that is such a good piece of advice. They're going to tell it to you like it is. And that way, a
Yeah,
patient doesn't have to tell you to their face what your problem is.
exactly. And I feel like you could like I said, I prepped for the worst of, one, the providers having been there forever, but nobody needed to like me coming into
Right.
like practice. Like, they all could have just been like, "Pfft, we're going elsewhere. Too bad."
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
really didn't see that. And I really feel like that was because I was approachable. And again, maybe if I was, over 6 foot tall and looked like a lady linebacker, that might be different.
Yeah.
If that paired with my personality, but I feel like it's not as difficult. Like you said, I err towards the helper part of a type 2. So I'm a healthy 8. Now, if you weren't, then I feel like you'd be in really big trouble.
Right. So you're a great example of how you can be one of these types, but then you can you can combat what's the supposed negative part about that type. I think
Yes.
that's so huge for all of these types. That's why we're doing, honestly, that's why we're doing an episode on every single type, because regardless of what your personality is, you still have to treat every patient with kindness and
Yes.
grace. And you have to kind of put some things aside in the moment, and everyone deserves the same kind of respect. So you can't really let these personality types get the best of you in a clinical setting. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. And the other thing with being a type 8 too is the previous providers that I took over for, one of them, not so much the other one, would let patients just come in, like they would get there, one of them would get there well before office hours. So they would just show up. It could be 6 a.m. If there was a car there, they were knocking on the door going, "Hey, can I get care?" Especially because my community is so industrial based for work. They would get off at 6 a.m. and see a vehicle there and be like, "Oh, I'm going to just stop in." And they would get treated. So when I took over, within the first 2 or 3 weeks of me owning my practice, there was a day where I was there early. I answered a phone call just because, whatever, before 7:30, that's when I open. And I had the door unlocked and I had 3 people in my waiting room. Mind you, I don't start till 7:30. I'm trying to take a phone call that wasn't the most pleasant phone call to be on. I had 2 people out there mad because I wasn't seeing them, or even like I said hi and whatever. And another one that just plain didn't listen to the fact that the Rumseys had retired. So they were all just like, I don't know, gossiping and bickering. And I could hear what they were saying while I'm on this phone call that I didn't want to be on. And I had to put them in their place and be like, I start at 7:30. The door's unlocked as a courtesy. I try to take a phone call, to answer this. And I'm listening to you guys, like doing whatever you're doing. I will have you to work on time. I don't like, it's a courtesy that you're even in my building right now. And if you don't want to see me, I can give you a referral, because even though I know knew and were told they retired, I am here. So you can see me or not, I don't care. And now now they're great patients, but I haven't really
set boundaries.
put my foot down. And that was the last time I took a phone call before 7:30. And now I show up like 2 minutes before 7:30 because nobody yells at me if I'm coming in like right at the last minute. But apparently if I'm there, I'm going to get yelled at for not taking somebody back earlier.
And you know what? I will say, and COVID comes up a lot in Better Doctor Project episodes, but I do think that's one of the better things that has come out of COVID is that people are more used to making reservations, booking appointments, canceling, rescheduling, a better understanding of people's time. Our office went through something similarly, and this was wild to me. But when I took this current job, we were primarily a walk-in type of office because it was tolerated. And obviously, if we can take a follow-up patient and it's, they've been there before, they've been there recently, if they walk in, of course, we're going to take care of them. But it was to the point where the amount of patients I had on the schedule would be scarce when I arrived. And by the end of my day, it would have quadrupled.
Yeah, that's the practice that I took over.
I
walked in day 1 and had 5, maybe 10 max patients on the schedule booked out. And I'm like, what did I just do? Nobody on my schedule. It was like terrifying when you're like, oh my gosh, I have 5 people. What am I going to do?
Yeah. And we would fill up, but it would always strike me as odd because these patients were 1000% taking advantage of our systems, our practice. And if they couldn't get the time they wanted, they got upset. And I remember it just created a lot of like hostility. And when COVID happened, we stopped taking walk-ins because it got in the way of screening and taking temperatures. And we had to do all of those things. So we realized that our schedules could be fully booked if we just let people make their appointments 24 plus hours in advance. So, it's been like life-changing for our practice. As a business, that's what you want anyways. But honestly, even from a clinical perspective, I feel like our patients just respect what we do a lot more. They understand that, they can't just walk in and expect us to be sitting around waiting for them.
Yes.
It's been a nice change, I think, and it's allowed us to grow and add more docs. And it's one of the few good things that came out of COVID. Well, I think being a type 8, obviously we can all learn a thing or two from you about a healthy confrontational style, also being just a good advocate for patients and standing up for people in difficult situations. I think there's something really powerful about the type 8. And I really thank you for being on the episode to share that with us. To our listeners, make sure you check out the show notes. We'll have some extra resources there for you. And if you're listening and this sounds like you, I think you need to dive in some more. So check out Enneagram Ashton on Instagram. There's tons of great resources out there like the Enneagram Institute. We'll have all of those things linked in our show notes. So to everyone listening, thank you for being here. Emily, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Provider's Report. We hope you found today's episode valuable and inspiring. To stay updated with our latest episodes, subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to listen. For more resources and continuing education opportunities, visit our website. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our patients and truly set a standard for value-based healthcare.